The Sheikh Billionaire froze when the waitress whispered one word. IT was the name of his long-lost child. The crystal chandeliers of Aurelius cast golden light across white marble floors, illuminating tables draped in silk where Manhattan's elite dine on $1,000 meals. Emma Carter moved between them like a ghost, her simple black uniform a stark contrast to the designer gowns and tailored suits surrounding her. At 26, she had perfected the art of invisibility. Eyes down, voice soft, presence minimal. No one here knew that the quiet waitress refilling their wine glasses held a degree from Columbia University, spoke 5 languages fluently, or had once been destined for academic greatness. She preferred it that way. Invisibility meant safety. It meant no questions about why a Columbia graduate served tables. It meant no one would discover the secret she protected with her life. A 5-year-old girl named Layla, waiting for her in a tiny Brooklyn apartment. Emma balanced a tray of champagne flutes as the restaurant's heavy doors swung open. A wave of cold November air swept through, followed by something else, a presence that made every head turn. Sheikh Rashid Al-Mansouri entered like royalty, which in many ways he was. At 48, he commanded attention without effort. His tailored Brioni suit fit his tall frame perfectly. A Patek Philippe watch glinted at his wrist, and his dark eyes swept the room with the confidence of a man who owned half of Dubai's skyline. 4 men flanked him, 2 bodyguards built like mountains, and 2 lawyers carrying leather briefcases. The maitre d' practically bowed as he led them to the restaurant's most exclusive table, a private corner booth with a view of the city lights. Emma's manager, Richard, grabbed her arm. Table 12, the Sheik's party. Be perfect, be invisible, and for God's sake, don't make eye contact. She nodded, her heart already racing. She had served powerful men before, but something about this one felt different. Dangerous, even. Emma approached the table with practiced grace, her notepad ready. Good evening, gentlemen. May I start you with something to drink? Rashi didn't look at her. He was already deep in conversation with his lawyers, speaking in rapid Arabic. To him, she was furniture, useful but unremarkable. Bring us your finest scotch, one of the lawyers said dismissively in English. The Macallan 25, if you have it. Of course, sir. Emma turned to leave, but froze. Rashid's voice, speaking Arabic, cut through the ambient noise. Any updates on the search? One lawyer responded in the same language, assuming privacy in the crowded American restaurant. Nothing concrete, Sheikh Al-Mansouri. It's been 5 years since your wife disappeared. The private investigators have exhausted every lead in New York. If the child survived the birth, there's no record of her in any hospital or adoption agency. Emma's hand trembled, nearly dropping her notepad. She forced herself to remain still, to keep walking, but her feet wouldn't obey. Rashid's voice dropped, heavy with pain. Her name was supposed to be Layla. My wife chose it before she... He couldn't finish the sentence. Keep searching. I don't care what it costs. My daughter is out there somewhere. The world tilted beneath Emma's feet. Layla. He said Layla. The same name. The same timeline. 5 years ago. A pregnant Arab woman. A hospital. A dying wish. Her mind flashed back to that terrible night. The emergency room at Mount Sinai, where she'd been volunteering as a translator. The beautiful woman with dark eyes, bleeding, dying, clutching Emma's hand. Please, she had begged in Arabic. They'll take her. Dangerous men. Promise me. Hide her. Protect her. Her name is Layla. Emma had promised. She had taken the newborn from the hospital in chaos, believing she was saving the child from traffickers or criminals. She had raised Layla as her own, never knowing the full truth, and now the father sat 3 feet away. Emma's voice came out as a whisper, barely audible, but in the quiet moment between their conversation, it carried. Layla. Rashid's head snapped up, his dark eyes locked onto her for the first time, and Emma saw something she hadn't expected. Raw, desperate hope mixed with shock. What did you say? His voice was sharp, commanding, but underneath it trembled with emotion. Every person at the table stared at her now. The lawyers exchanged confused glances. The bodyguards tensed, hands moving toward concealed weapons. Emma's throat was dry. She had spent 5 years hiding, and in one moment, one word, she had shattered everything. But looking into Rashid's eyes, seeing the pain of a father who had lost everything, she couldn't stay silent. "You said Layla," she repeated, this time in perfect Arabic, her accent flawless. "You're looking for a child named Layla, born 5 years ago. Mother died in childbirth." Rashid stood so abruptly his chair fell backward. He towered over her, his face a mass of shock and fury and desperate hope. "How do you know that name? How do you know about my wife?" The entire restaurant had gone silent. Emma could feel dozens of eyes on them, but all she could see was Rashid. And the truth she could no longer hide. "Because I was there," she whispered. "I was there the night your wife died. And I know where your daughter is." Rashid's legs nearly gave out. One of his lawyers caught his arm, steadying him. His voice came out broken, barely human. "What did you just say?" Emma's eyes filled with tears. "I know where Layla is. I've been taking care of her. For 5 years, I've been protecting her, just like her mother asked me to." For a moment, the powerful Sheikh Billionaire who commanded empires and moved markets with a word could only stare at the humble waitress before him, unable to speak, unable to breathe, unable to process that his entire world had just changed with a single whispered name. Then he grabbed her shoulders, not roughly, but with trembling hands. "Take me to her. Right now. Take me to my daughter." But Emma stepped back, her own strength surprising her. "Not until I know the truth. Not until I know she'll be safe." Her mother's last words are to hide her from dangerous men. "How do I know you're not one of them?" Rashid's face transformed, shock giving way to understanding, then respect. This waitress, this woman who had every reason to fear him, was protecting his child, just as his wife had asked. "Then let me tell you everything," he said, his voice steady now, filled with purpose. "Let me tell you about the woman I loved, the child I've searched for every day since she disappeared, and why I will spend the rest of my life making sure both of you are safe." Emma looked into his eyes and saw truth. She saw pain. She saw a father who had lost everything. And she knew that nothing would ever be the same again. Rashid dismissed everyone. The lawyers, the bodyguards, the business associates. Within minutes, the private booth held only two people, a billionaire sheik and a waitress, sitting across from each other like equals for the first time. Emma had removed her apron, her hands folded on the table. Richard had tried to intervene, confused and angry about the disruption, but one look from Rashid and a whispered promise of compensation had sent him scurrying away. "Tell me everything," Rashid said, his voice raw. "From the beginning, please." Emma took a deep breath. 5 years ago, I was volunteering at Mount Sinai Hospital as a translator. I had just finished my master's degree in linguistics and Middle Eastern studies at Columbia. I spoke Arabic, Farsi, Turkish. I wanted to help immigrant communities. She paused, the memories flooding back. It was November 15th. Late night, they brought in a woman, pregnant, hemorrhaging badly. She was Arab, terrified, and no one could understand her. They called me. Rashid's hands clenched into fists. November 15th. That was the night Amira disappeared. She had been in New York for a conference. She called me that morning, said she felt strange, was going to the hospital to check on the baby. Then nothing. No calls. No messages. When I arrived 2 days later, there was no record of her anywhere. Because she used a false name, Emma said quietly. She told me her name was Sarah. She was terrified. Kept saying, "They'll find me. They'll take the baby." I thought she was talking about traffickers or an abusive husband. I didn't know. Know what? Rashid leaned forward, desperate. That she was dying. The doctors tried everything, but the hemorrhaging wouldn't stop. They performed an emergency C-section. The baby survived. Your wife didn't. Emma's voice broke. In her final moments, she grabbed my hand. She made me promise, made me swear on everything holy that I would take the baby and hide her. She said dangerous men were looking for her, that they would kill the child. She told me the baby's name was Layla. Then she died. Rashid's face was wet with tears. He didn't bother to hide. She thought she was protecting our daughter. Amira's family, they're traditional, powerful. When she married me, a man they didn't approve of, they threatened her, disowned her. Her brother swore he would kill any child born from our union. Said it was a stain on their family honor. We thought we had escaped them, thought we were safe in Dubai, but they found her in New York. Emma's blood ran cold, so she wasn't paranoid. The danger was real, very real. And you, Rashid looked at her with something like awe. You saved my daughter's life. You took her, hid her, raised her, all because a dying woman asked you to. I didn't know what else to do, Emma said. The hospital was in chaos. There was no record of her admission under any real name. I was holding this newborn baby, and all I could think about was that promise. So I took her. I forged some documents, claimed I was her mother, and I disappeared. I dropped out of my PhD program, left my life behind, and I've been raising Layla ever since. Rashid was silent for a long moment, processing everything. You gave up your entire future for a stranger's child. She wasn't a stranger, Emma said fiercely. She was a baby who needed protection, and her mother trusted me. I couldn't betray that trust. Where is she now? Where is Layla? Safe, with a neighbor I trust. In Brooklyn. Emma met his eyes. I need to know more before I take you to her. I need to know about these dangerous men. I need to know that bringing you into her life won't put her at risk. Rashid nodded slowly, respect growing in his eyes. You're protecting her, even from me, even now. He pulled out his phone, scrolled through photos, and turned the screen toward Emma. This was Amira, my wife. Emma gasped. The woman in the photo was the same woman from that terrible night. Beautiful, with kind eyes and a gentle smile, wearing an elegant abaya, standing beside Rashid in front of what looked like a palace. We married 7 years ago, Rashid continued. It was arranged by mutual friends, but we fell in love quickly. She was brilliant, a professor of literature, fluent in 6 languages, passionate about education reform. When she became pregnant, we were overjoyed, but then her family found out. Her brother, Khalid, is a dangerous man with connections to extremist groups. He sent her death threats. We hired security, but Amira was terrified. When she came to New York for a conference, she insisted on going alone, said she needed space to think. I should have stopped her. I should have protected her better. She protected your daughter, Emma said softly. That's what mothers do. Rashid's voice was thick with emotion. And now you've been her mother for 5 years. You've given her everything I couldn't. How can I ever repay that? I don't want repayment, Emma said. I want to know that Layla will be safe, that these men won't find her. Khalid died 3 years ago, Rashid said. Car accident in Riyadh. His organization collapsed without him. The threat is gone. I've had investigators confirm it repeatedly. My daughter is safe now. She can finally come home. Emma's heart clenched. Home. To him, home meant Dubai, mansions, a world of wealth and power. A world where a Brooklyn waitress had no place. She is home, Emma said quietly. With me? Rashid saw the fear in her eyes and understood. I'm not trying to take her from you. I'm trying to give her everything, including the woman who saved her life. Please, Emma, let me meet my daughter. Let me be part of her life. And let me help you, too. You gave up everything for her. Let me give something back. Emma studied his face, searching for deception, for hidden motives. But all she saw was a father's desperate love and genuine gratitude. Okay, she whispered. I'll take you to her. But we do this slowly. She's 5 years old. She doesn't know about you. This has to be done right. Rashid nodded, wiping his eyes. However you think is best. You're her mother. I trust your judgment. Those words, you're her mother, broke something in Emma. 4 or 5 years. She had lived in fear that someone would discover the truth, would take Layla away, would call her a kidnapper. But this man, Layla's biological father, was calling her mother. Thank you, she whispered. Rashid stood, extending his hand. No, thank you for everything. for saving her, for loving her, for being the mother my wife couldn't be. Emma took his hand, and in that moment, both of their lives changed forever. The taxi ride to Brooklyn felt surreal. Rashid sat beside Emma in the back seat, his expensive suit incongruous against the worn fabric. He had insisted on coming immediately, unable to wait another moment to meet his daughter. Emma's phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Chun, her elderly neighbor who watched Layla when Emma worked late shifts. Layla is asleep. Sweet dreams to our little angel. She's sleeping, Emma told Rashid. We should wait until morning. Please, Rashid said, his voice breaking. I just need to see her, even if she's asleep. I've waited 5 years. I can't wait another night. Emma understood. She nodded. They climbed the 3 flights of stairs at Emma's apartment. A tiny one-bedroom in a building that had seen better decades. Emma was acutely aware of how shabby everything must look to a man who owned palaces. The peeling paint, the flickering hallway light, the smell of cooking from neighboring apartments. But Rashid didn't seem to notice. His entire focus was on the door Emma was unlocking, his hands trembling. Mrs. Chen opened her door across the hall, her wrinkled face concerned. Emma? Who is this man? It's okay, Mrs. Chun, Emma said gently in Mandarin, another language she spoke fluently. This is Layla's father, her biological father. It's a long story, but everything is okay. Mrs. Chen's eyes widened, but she nodded. The little one is sleeping on your couch. I gave her dinner, dumplings, her favorite. She asked about you. Thank you. I'll take her to bed now. Net her apartment door. The space was tiny but immaculate. A small living room with a worn couch, a kitchenette, and a bedroom barely big enough for a double bed. Children's drawings covered the refrigerator. Toys were neatly organized in a corner. Books. So many books lined makeshift shelves. And there, on the couch, covered with a pink blanket, was Layla. Rashid stopped breathing. The little girl was curled on her side, her dark curls spread across a pillow, one small hand clutching a stuffed rabbit. Even in sleep, she was beautiful, olive skin, long lashes, delicate features. Rashid took 3 steps forward and collapsed his knees beside the couch. His hand reached out, trembling, and gently touched Layla's hair. She has Amira's eyes, he whispered, his voice shattered. Even closed, I can tell. The same shape, the same lashes. Tears streamed down his face. This powerful man, who commanded billions and never showed weakness, wept openly as he looked at his daughter for the first time. She's perfect, he breathed. She's absolutely perfect. Emma stood back, her own tears falling. She had imagined this moment countless times. The day Layla's real family would find them, would take her away. But this wasn't what she had expected. This wasn't anger or accusations. This was pure, overwhelming love. Layla stirred, her eyes fluttering open. She saw Emma first and smiled sleepily. Mama? Emma's heart clenched. Layla called her Mama. Had for 3 years now. I'm here, sweetheart, Emma said softly, moving closer. Then Layla noticed Rashid. Her eyes widened slightly, but she wasn't afraid, just curious. Who are you? Rashid's voice was gentle, careful. My name is Rashid. I'm a friend of your mama's. Layla studied him with the serious expression children sometimes have. You're crying. Are you sad? No, little one, Rashid said, smiling through his tears. I'm happy, so very happy. Why? Because I just met someone very special. Layla smiled, then yawned. Okay, I'm sleepy. She reached for Emma. Mama, bed? Yes, baby. Let's get you to bed. Emma carried Layla to the bedroom, tucking her into the small bed they shared. Layla was asleep again within seconds. When Emma returned to the living room, Rashid was standing by the window, looking out at the Brooklyn skyline. His shoulders shook with silent sobs. She called you Mama, he said without turning around. I'm sorry, Emma whispered. I never tried to replace. Don't apologize. Rashid turned, his face fierce. Don't ever apologize for loving my daughter, for being what she needed. You are her mother, Emma, in every way that matters. But you're her father, and I've been absent for 5 years. You've been here every day, every night. You've fed her, clothed her, loved her. You've given her everything on a waitress's salary, living in this tiny apartment, sacrificing your own dreams. He crossed the room, taking Emma's hands. I will never take her from you. Never. But please, let me be part of her life. Let me help you both. You don't have to struggle anymore. Emma wanted to refuse, wanted to maintain her independence. But looking around her cramped apartment, thinking about the bills she could barely pay, the opportunities she couldn't give Layla, she knew she had to put her pride aside. What are you proposing? She asked carefully. Move into my home in Manhattan. Both of you. I have a mansion with 12 bedrooms, a library, a garden. Layla can have her own room, her own space. You can have your own suite. I'll hire you as her full-time caretaker and tutor, whatever title you want. I'll pay you $200,000 a year, plus all expenses covered. You'll have complete authority over her care and education. I just want to be near her, to know her, to be her father. Emma's mind reeled. $200,000. Financial security. A real home for Layla. But also, giving up her independence, entering his world, becoming an employee. I need time to think, she said. Of course. Take all the time you need. Rashid pulled out a business card, writing on the back, "This is my private number. Call me anytime, day or night." And Emma, he met her eyes. Thank you for everything. You saved my daughter's life. I will spend the rest of mine making sure you never regret it. After Rashid left, Emma sat in the darkness of her apartment, watching Layla sleep, wondering if she had just made a deal with an angel or opened a door she could never close. 3 days later, Emma stood in front of a mansion in the Upper East Side that looked like it belonged in a European capital, not New York City. Layla held her hand, eyes wide with wonder. Mama, is this a castle? Something like that, baby. The decision had been agonizing, but ultimately simple. Emma could give Layla love, but Rashid could give her everything else. Education, opportunity, security, and a father. Layla deserved all of it. Rashid opened the door himself, dressed casually in dark slacks and a white shirt, his face lighting up when he saw them. Welcome home. The mansion was breathtaking. Marble floors, soaring ceilings, priceless art on every wall. But Rashid led them past all of it to a wing he had prepared specifically for them. Layla's room was a child's dream. A canopy bed with pink silk curtains, shelves full of books and toys, a window seat overlooking a private garden, and walls painted with a mural of fairy tale castle. Do you like it? Rashid asked nervously, kneeling to Layla's level. Layla's eyes were huge. It's like a princess room. That's because you are a princess, Rashid said softly. A very special princess. Emma's suite was equally stunning. A bedroom, sitting room, and private bathroom, all decorated in elegant neutrals with touches of warmth. It was larger than her entire Brooklyn apartment. Is this too much? Rashid asked Emma quietly while Layla explored her new room. I wanted you both to be comfortable, but if it's overwhelming... It's perfect, Emma said honestly. Thank you. Over the following weeks, they settled into a routine. Emma homeschooled Layla in the mornings, teaching her reading, math, and languages. Rashid joined them for lunch every day, his business meeting scheduled around this sacred time. In the afternoons, he would take Layla to the garden or the library, reading to her, playing with her, learning to be a father. Emma watched their bond grow with mixed emotions. Joy that Layla had a father who loved her, and fear that she was becoming unnecessary. But Rashid never made her feel that way. He included her in every decision, deferred her judgment on Layla's care, and treated her not as an employee but as a partner in raising his daughter. One evening, after Layla was asleep, Rashid invited Emma to his study. The room was lined with books in multiple languages, a fire crackling in the fireplace. I've been researching you, he said without preamble. Emma's blood ran cold. What? Your academic history, your published papers, your thesis on medieval Arabic manuscripts. He pulled a folder from his desk. You were brilliant, Emma. Your work on the translation of the Al-Jazari manuscripts was groundbreaking. You should have had a PhD by now, a position at a major university. What happened? Emma's hands clenched. That's not your concern. It is as if it's the reason you were working as a waitress instead of changing the world with your mind. Rashid's voice was gentle but insistent. Tell me what happened. Emma closed her eyes, the old pain washing over her. His name was Dr. Marcus Thornton. He was my advisor, my mentor, and my fiancé. I trusted him with everything. My research, my ideas, my future. While I was dealing with Layla's adoption and trying to keep us afloat, he published my entire dissertation under his name. When I confronted him, he claimed I had stolen his work. He had connections, reputation, power. I had nothing. The university believed him. I was expelled for academic dishonesty. My reputation was destroyed. No one would hire me, so I became a waitress. Rashid's face darkened with fury. Where's this man now? He's a celebrated professor at NYU. He's published 3 books based on my research. He's living my life. Not for long, Rashid said quietly, dangerously. What are you going to do? I'm going to give you your life back. 2 weeks later, Emma was reading to Layla in the library when Rashid's assistant interrupted. Ms. Carter, there's a formal dinner tonight. Sheikh Al-Mansouri requests your presence. Emma blinked. I don't attend his social events. He specifically requested you. It's important. That evening, Emma found a dress laid out in her room, a stunning emerald silk gown that fit perfectly. A note, you deserve to be seen. The dinner was held in the mansion's formal dining room, with 20 guests, business associates, diplomats, academics. Emma fell out of place until she saw the guest list. Dr. Marcus Thornton was seated directly across from her. Marcus's face went pale when he saw her, then twisted into a condescending smile. Emma, is that you? My God, what are you doing here? Are you serving tonight? Before Emma could respond, Rashid appeared at her side, his hand on her shoulder. Dr. Thornton, allow me to introduce Dr. Emma Carter, my daughter's tutor and one of the foremost experts on medieval Arabic manuscripts. Emma, this is Dr. Marcus Thornton, a professor at NYU. Marcus's smile faltered. Dr. Carter, I think there's been a mistake. Emma never completed her doctorate. Because you stole her dissertation, Rashid said pleasantly, as if discussing the weather. The room went silent. Marcus laughed nervously. That's absurd. Emma was expelled for plagiarism. Everyone knows. Everyone knows what you told them, Rashid interrupted. But I've spent the last 2 weeks investigating. I've hired forensic document analysts, interviewed your former colleagues, and recovered deleted emails from university servers. Would you like to know what I found? Marcus's face drained of color. Rashid pulled out a folder, laying documents on the table. Emails from you to Emma, asking for her research notes. Drafts of her dissertation with her name on them, dated months before your publication. Testimony from 3 graduate students who saw you in Emma's office, copying her files. And my personal favorite, a recording of you bragging to a colleague about how you borrowed your student's work and she was too weak to fight back. The room erupted in shocked whispers. This is ridiculous, Marcus stammered. You can't prove. I already have, Rashid said coldly. I've sent this evidence to NYU's ethics board, the academic journals that publish your work, and several major newspapers. By tomorrow morning, your career will be over. You'll be investigated for fraud, your publications will be retracted, and Emma's name will be cleared. Marcus stood abruptly, his chair falling backward. You can't do this. Do you know who I am? I know exactly who you are, Rashid said, his voice like ice. You're a thief who destroyed an innocent woman's life to advance your own career. You're a coward who preyed on someone who trusted you. And now you're finished. Marcus looked at Emma, his face twisted with rage and fear. You did this. You vindictive. She did nothing. Rashid cut him off. I did this. Because no one hurts the people I care about and gets away with it. Now get out of my home before I have you arrested for trespassing. 2 security guards appeared, escorting a protesting Marcus out. The remaining guests stared at Emma, with new respect. One woman, a dean from Columbia, approached her. "Ms. Carter, if even half of what Sheikh Al-Mansouri said is true, we owe you an enormous apology. I'd like to discuss reinstating your position and clearing your record." Emma couldn't speak. She could only nod, tears streaming down her face. After the guests left, she found Rashid on the terrace, looking out at the city lights. "Why did you do that?" she asked. He turned, his expression serious. "Because you saved my daughter. Because you sacrificed everything for a stranger's child. Because you deserve justice. And because—" He hesitated. "Because I care about you, Emma. More than I should. More than is appropriate." Emma's heart stopped. "Rashid, I know it's complicated. I know I'm your employer, that you're Layla's mother, that there are 1,000 reasons this is wrong. But I can't stop thinking about you. Your strength, your intelligence, your kindness. You're extraordinary, and I—" Emma kissed him. It was impulsive, reckless, and absolutely right. Rashid pulled her close, and for a moment, the world fell away. When they broke apart, both were breathless. "This is crazy," Emma whispered. "Completely," Rashid agreed. "What do? We take it slow. We figure out together. We put Layla first." He cupped her face. "But Emma, I need you to know, this isn't gratitude or obligation. This is real." "I know," she said. "For me too." They stood together under the stars, two broken people who had found each other in the most unexpected way, with a little girl sleeping upstairs who had brought them together. And for the first time in 5 years, Emma felt like she was finally home. The next morning, Emma woke to her phone buzzing with notifications, news articles, emails, messages from former colleagues. The story had broken. Dr. Marcus Thornton exposed as a fraud, Emma Carter vindicated. Her stolen research returned to her name. But the peace was short-lived. That afternoon, while Emma was teaching Layla mathematics in the library, Rashid's assistant rushed in, her face pale. "Sheikh Al-Mansouri needs to see you immediately. It's urgent." Emma found Rashid in his study, his face dark with fury, holding a legal document. "What's wrong?" she asked. "Marcus has filed a lawsuit," Rashid said, his voice tight. "He's claiming that you kidnapped Layla 5 years ago. He's alleging that you're an unstable woman who stole a child and has been hiding her illegally. He's demanding that Layla be removed from your care immediately and placed with her rightful father, me, while he acts as a concerned citizen, ensuring justice." Emma's world tilted. "What? That's insane." "It's revenge," Rashid said. "He knows his academic career is over, so he's trying to destroy you another way. And the worst part is, technically, he has a case. You never legally adopted Layla. You forged documents. By law, what you did could be considered kidnapping, even if your intentions were pure." "No," Emma whispered, sinking into a chair. "No, I saved her. I protected her. I know that, but the law doesn't care about intentions." Rashid knelt before her, taking her hands. "Emma, listen to me. I will not let him win. I will not let him take Layla from you. But we need to be smart about this." "How?" "If the law says I kidnapped her, then we change the narrative. We tell the truth, all of it. Amira's death, her family's threats, your promise to protect Layla. We show that you acted to save a child's life, not to steal one. And we make it clear that I, as Layla's father, fully support you and want you to remain her legal guardian. Will that be enough?" "It has to be." Rashid's jaw set with determination. "I've already called my lawyers. We're filing a countersuit against Marcus for harassment and defamation. We're also petitioning the court to grant you legal guardianship of Layla with my full endorsement. But Emma—" He hesitated. "This is going to get ugly. The media will be involved. Your life will be scrutinized. Are you ready for that?" Emma thought of Layla, sleeping peacefully upstairs, unaware that her world was about to be turned upside down. She thought of the promise she had made to a dying woman 5 years ago. "I'll do whatever it takes to protect her," Emma said firmly. "Whatever it takes." The lawsuit became a media sensation. "Waitress, kidnapper, or guardian angel?" the headline screamed. Billionaire Sheikh's secret daughter found after 5 years. Academic fraud exposes child abduction. Emma couldn't leave the mansion without being swarmed by reporters. Her face was on every news channel, her past dissected by strangers. Some called her a hero, others called her a criminal. Through it all, Rashid stood by her side. He gave interviews defending her, hired the best lawyers money could buy, and shielded Layla from the chaos. But the strain was showing. Layla, confused by the sudden changes in the tension in the house, became clingy and tearful. Emma barely slept, terrified that child services would come and take Layla away. One night, Emma broke down. She was in her room, packing a bag, when Rashid found her. "What are you doing?" he asked. "I'm leaving," Emma said, tears streaming down her face. "This is my fault. Marcus is doing this to hurt me, and Layla is caught in the middle. If I disappear, maybe he'll drop the lawsuit. Maybe you and Layla can have a normal life." "Absolutely not," Rashid said firmly, taking the bag from her hands. "You're not running. We're fighting this together. I can't let her lose everything because of me. She won't lose anything. But if you leave, she'll lose you, and that would destroy her." Rashid pulled Emma into his arms. "You're her mother, Emma. She needs you. I need you. We're a family now, and families don't abandon each other." Emma sobbed against his chest. "I'm so scared." "I know. So am I. But we're going to win this. I promise you." The court hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks later. In the meantime, Rashid's investigators worked around the clock, gathering evidence to support Emma's case. They found hospital records confirming Amira's death and the circumstances surrounding it. They located the nurse who had been on duty that night, who testified that Emma had been a volunteer translator and had acted with compassion. They documented the threats from Amira's family and proved that the danger had been real. But Marcus had his own evidence. Forged documents, Emma's lack of legal adoption, and testimony from experts claiming she was unstable. The day of the hearing arrived. Emma wore a simple navy suit, her hair pulled back, trying to look respectable and stable. Rashid sat beside her, his presence a comfort. Marcus sat across the aisle with his lawyers, smirking confidently. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s, reviewed the case files. "This is highly unusual," she said. "Ms. Carter, you're accused of kidnapping a child 5 years ago. How do you plead?" Emma stood, her voice steady despite her fear. "Not guilty, Your Honor. I didn't kidnap Layla. I saved her life." "That's for this court to decide. Dr. Thornton, you brought this case as a concerned citizen. What is your interest in this matter?" Marcus stood, his voice dripping with false concern. "Your Honor, I'm simply trying to ensure that a child who was illegally taken from her family is returned to her rightful guardian. Ms. Carter has a history of instability and dishonesty. She was expelled from Columbia for academic fraud." "That's a lie," Emma interrupted. "You stole my work." The judge banged her gavel. "Order. Ms. Carter, you'll have your chance to speak." Rashid's lawyer stood. "Your Honor, we have extensive evidence proving that Dr. Thornton is the one who committed fraud, not Ms. Carter. His accusations are motivated by revenge, not concern for the child." "We'll hear all evidence in due course," the judge said. "But first, I want to understand the core issue. Sheikh Al-Mansouri, you are the child's biological father. What is your position on Ms. Carter's guardianship?" Rashid stood, commanding the room's attention. "Your Honor, Emma Carter saved my daughter's life. My late wife, in her final moments, entrusted Layla to Emma because she knew the child was in danger. Emma has raised Layla with love, dedication, and sacrifice for 5 years. She is Layla's mother in every way that matters. I fully support her legal guardianship and request that this court grant it formally." The judge raised an eyebrow. "You're not seeking sole custody?" "No, Your Honor. I want shared custody with Emma. We're raising Layla together, as partners. She needs both of us." Marcus's lawyer jumped up. "Your Honor, this is clearly a case of Stockholm Syndrome or manipulation. Sheikh Al-Mansouri has been deceived by Ms. Carter." "I assure you, I have not been deceived," Rashid said coldly. I know exactly who Emma Carter is, a woman of integrity, intelligence, and courage, unlike Dr. Thornton, who is a proven liar and thief. The judge banged her gavel again. Enough. We'll proceed with testimony. I want to hear from the hospital staff, the investigators, and anyone else with relevant information. This court is adjourned until tomorrow morning. That night, Emma couldn't sleep. She stood in Layla's room, watching the little girl sleep, memorizing every detail of her face. Mama? Layla's eyes opened. Why are you sad? Emma forced a smile. I'm not sad, baby. Just thinking. About the court? Rashid told me we have to talk to a judge. Emma's heart clenched. Yes, but everything will be okay. Will they take me away from you? Never, Emma said fiercely, pulling Layla into her arms. I will never let anyone take you away from me. I promise. Good, Layla said, snuggling close. Because you're my mama, and Rashid is my baba, and we're a family. Emma held her daughter, because Layla was her daughter, biology be damned, and prayed that the judge would see the truth. The second day of the hearing was brutal. Marcus's lawyers presented their case, painting Emma as an unstable woman who had stolen a child in a moment of mental breakdown. They brought in a psychologist who had never met Emma, but claimed she fit the profile of someone with savior complex and delusional attachment. Emma's hands shook as she listened to herself being torn apart. Then it was their turn. Rashid's lawyers presented the evidence methodically: hospital records, witness testimony, documentation of threats against Amira, proof that Emma had acted to protect Layla, not harm her. The nurse who had been on duty that night testified tearfully. I was there. I saw that poor woman die. I saw Emma promise to protect the baby. She didn't steal that child. She saved her. Rashid took the stand, his testimony powerful and emotional. Emma Carter is the reason my daughter is alive. She gave up her career, her future, everything, to keep a promise to a dying woman. She has loved Layla as her own child for 5 years. She is Layla's mother, and I will fight anyone who tries to take her away from us. Finally, the judge called Emma to the stand. Ms. Carter, the judge said, I've heard a lot of testimony about you. Now I want to hear from you. Why did you take this child? Emma took a deep breath. Because her mother begged me to. Because I looked into that dying woman's eyes and saw pure terror. Not for herself, but for her baby. Because I held a newborn in my arms and knew that if I didn't protect her, she would die. I didn't think about the law or the consequences. I just thought about saving a life. You forged documents. You lied about being her mother. Yes, Your Honor, I did, and I would do it again. Emma's voice was steady now, filled with conviction. Because Layla's alive. She's healthy, happy, and loved. If I had followed proper channels, she would have been put into the system, and Amira's family would have found her. She would be dead. So yes, I broke the law, but I saved a child's life, and I will never apologize for that. The courtroom was silent. The judge studied Emma for a long moment. Ms. Carter, I'm going to ask you a difficult question. If I grant Sheikh Al-Mansouri full custody and remove you from Layla's life, what would you do? Emma's eyes filled with tears. I would be devastated. But if that's what's best for Layla, if that's what the law requires, then I would accept it, because I love her more than anything in this world, and her happiness matters more than mine. And if I grant you guardianship, I would spend every day of my life making sure she knows she's loved, protected, and cherished. I would give her every opportunity, every advantage, everything I never had, and I would make sure she knows about her mother, the brave, beautiful woman who loved her enough to save her with her dying breath. The judge nodded slowly. Thank you, Ms. Carter. You may step down. The final testimony came from an unexpected source, a representative from Amira's family. A woman in her 50s, wearing a hijab, approached the stand. I am Amira's aunt, she said in accented English. I have come from Dubai to speak the truth. My nephew, Khalid, was a monster. He threatened to kill Amira and her child because of his twisted beliefs. The rest of our family was too afraid to stop him. When Amira disappeared, we thought she had escaped. When we learned she had died, we mourned, But we also hoped that her child had survived, that someone had protected her from Khalid's evil. She turned to Emma. You did what we could not. You saved our family's daughter. You are a hero, not a criminal. Marcus's case collapsed. His lawyers scrambled, but there was nothing left to argue. The judge called for a recess to make her decision. 2 hours later, they were called back into the courtroom. I've reviewed all the evidence and testimony, the judge said. This is one of the most unusual cases I've ever presided over. Ms. Carter, what you did was technically illegal. You forged documents. You took a child without proper legal authority, and you hid her for 5 years. Under normal circumstances, you would face serious charges. Emma's heart sank. However, the judge continued, these were not normal circumstances. You acted to save a child's life from a credible threat. You have raised that child with love and dedication. And most importantly, the child's biological father fully supports your guardianship. Therefore, I am ruling in your favor. All charges are dismissed. Furthermore, I am granting you and Sheikh Al-Mansouri joint legal custody of Layla, with equal parental rights. Ms. Carter, you are officially her mother. Emma collapsed into her chair, sobbing with relief. Rashid pulled her into his arms, his own eyes wet. The judge wasn't finished. As for you, Dr. Thornton, I am appalled by your actions. You brought this case not out of concern for a child, but out of spite and revenge. You have wasted this court's time and resources. I am ordering you to pay all legal fees for both parties, and I am referring your conduct to the Bar Association for review. Get out of my courtroom. Marcus fled, his face red with humiliation and rage. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed them, but Emma didn't care. She was free. Layla was hers. They were a family. That night, back at the mansion, they told Layla the news. So Emma is really my mama? Layla asked. Forever? Forever, Rashid confirmed. And I'm your Baba. Forever. Layla beamed. Good, because I love you both. Emma and Rashid exchanged a look over Layla's head, a look filled with love, gratitude, and promise. They had fought for their family, and they had won. 6 months later, Emma stood in the auditorium at Columbia University, wearing doctoral robes. After the trial, the university had not only cleared her record, but had invited her to complete her Ph.D. With Rashid's support, both emotional and financial, she had finished her dissertation in record time. Rashid and Layla sat in the front row, beaming with pride. Dr. Emma Carter, the dean announced, and the audience erupted in applause. Emma accepted her diploma, tears streaming down her face. She had her daughter, her career, and her dignity back. Everything Marcus had stolen, she had reclaimed. But the best part came after the ceremony. Rashid had arranged a private celebration at the mansion. As Emma entered, she found the entire house decorated with flowers and lights. Layla ran to her, wearing a beautiful dress. Mama, Baba has a surprise for you. Rashid appeared, looking nervous in a way Emma had never seen before. He took her hand and led her to the garden, where a table was set for 3 under the stars. Emma, he said, his voice shaking slightly. 6 months ago, you were a waitress, and I was a man who had lost everything. You gave me back my daughter. You gave me back hope. You gave me back the ability to love. He dropped to one knee, pulling out a velvet box. You are the strongest, most brilliant, most beautiful woman I have ever known. You are Layla's mother and my partner. But I want more. I want you to be my wife. Will you marry me? Emma's hands flew to her mouth. Rashid, say yes, Mama. Layla shouted, bouncing excitedly. Emma laughed through her tears. Yes, yes, of course yes. Rashid slipped a stunning diamond ring on her finger and pulled her into a kiss. Layla cheered, running to hug them both. We're really a family now. Layla said. We've always been a family, Emma said, holding her daughter and her fiancé close. From the moment I made a promise to your first mama, we've been a family. That night, after Layla was asleep, Emma and Rashid stood on the terrace, looking out at the city lights. Do you ever regret it? Rashid asked. Giving up your old life, taking Layla, everything that happened? Emma thought about the scared young woman she'd been 5 years ago, holding a newborn in a hospital, making an impossible promise. She thought about the struggles, the fear, the years of hiding. Then she thought about Layla's laugh, Rashid's love, and the family they had built from tragedy and hope. Not for a second, she said. Every choice, every sacrifice, every moment led me here. Led us here, and I wouldn't change a thing. Rashid pulled her close. Neither would I. In the distance, the city sparkled with possibility. Emma Carter, once a waitress, once a woman with nothing, now a doctor, a mother, and a bride-to-be, smiled. She had whispered one word, Layla, and changed everything. And she would do it again in a heartbeat. The wedding took place 3 months later in the mansion's garden, with only close friends and family present. Layla served as flower girl, scattering rose petals with serious concentration. Emma wore a simple white gown, elegant and understated. Rashid wore traditional Emirati dress, a white thobe and gutra, honoring his heritage. As they exchanged vows, Emma thought about Amira, the woman who had started it all. Thank you, she whispered silently. Thank you for trusting me. Thank you for your daughter. I promise I'll take care of them both. The reception was joyful, filled with laughter and dancing. Even Mrs. Chun from Brooklyn attended, crying happy tears. But the most meaningful moment came when Rashid's lawyers presented Emma with a document. What's this? She asked. The deed to a new research institute, Rashid said. The Amira Al-Mansouri Center for Arabic Studies. You'll be the director. You can hire your own team, pursue any research you want, and train the next generation of scholars. It's fully funded for the next 50 years. Emma stared at the document, overwhelmed. Rashid, this is too much. It's not enough, he said firmly. You gave me everything. Let me give you this. Emma kissed him, pouring all her gratitude and love into it. Later, as the party wound down, Emma found Layla asleep on a garden bench, exhausted from dancing. She picked up her daughter, now legally, officially, permanently her daughter, and carried her inside. Rashid followed, his hand on Emma's back. They tucked Layla into bed together, both kissing her forehead. She's perfect, Rashid whispered. She is, Emma agreed. They stood in the doorway, watching their daughter sleep, and Emma marveled at how much had changed. A year ago, she had been invisible, struggling, alone. Now she was seen, celebrated, loved, all because of one word, one promise, one child. Ready for bed, Dr. Al-Mansouri? Rashid asked, using her new name. Emma smiled. Ready for everything. They walked hand in hand to their bedroom, ready to face whatever came next together as a family forever. And in her dreams at night, Emma saw Amira smiling, finally at peace, knowing her daughter was loved, protected, and home. The end.